Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and light be with you. This is Ihsan. The Messenger of God, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad said that the most evil thing that a man can fill is his belly. Right? So that the most evil thing, the most evil container that a human being can fill is their belly. Nowadays, everything is in such abundance. It's so easy to have access to not just food, but rich and indulgent and tasty and tempting foods, right? And it's so easy to slip into excess. And in fact, this is even more the case for Muslims, because what we tend to do as human beings in general is seek comfort. We tend to try to emotionally regulate ourselves emotionally, oftentimes through some sort of external thing like food. And this is, again, like I said, more so the case for Muslims because, generally Muslims will not have access to alcohol, smoking, drugs, other forms of, sort of emotional management and self-medication. So it's easy for Muslims then to instead turn towards food for dealing with just the typical stress and challenges of being a human being, especially in the modern world. Yet, and again, the extreme abundance of food and everything, sort of, right? I mean, you can just 5 minutes you're in the store and you can get ice cream, you can get cookies, you can get anything you want, right? And it's led to this epidemic of excess in our lives that is destroying us in terms of not just our physical health, but also spiritually and emotionally, because everything is connected. Your body, your spirit, or your body and your soul, your mind, these are all one integrated, one fused, it's part of your being. And every part affects the other. It's not like you could be negligent towards your body and it doesn't affect your spirit or your soul. Your negligence, or a human being's negligence towards their body, affects one's consciousness, one's state of consciousness, one's emotions, one's balance, one's health, one's happiness, one's outlook, one's perspective. When you're not feeling good, or when the body's under immense stress due to what we're doing and our choices and our lifestyle, lack of exercises, unhealthy eating, that affects the emotions, it affects the spirit, it affects the soul, it affects one's religion, it affects one's spirituality, it affects one's relationships. So we have to start thinking very holistically as human beings in general, but especially as Muslims, who are meant to be people of excellence, who are meant to be leaders in terms of what is good, what is right, what is true, what is healthy. Islam actually means health. It is the same root word to be in a state that's whole, sound, to be in a state that is salim, right? It's the same root as Islam, to be in a state that is whole, sound, healthy. That is Islam. Islam is a religion of health, right? Because you cannot be unhealthy in your body due to a negligent and unhealthy lifestyle and unhealthy choices and think that we are now, still doing our prayers and still managing the requirements of the religion and paying the zakat and so on, and fasting, and even our fasting in those cases is completely off. This is one of the things that I really talk about a lot in the Ramadan Success Program is how are we fasting? It's not just to fast and abstain from food and drink and then indulge in rich foods, and we're just completely ruining the benefit of fasting. I was speaking with a friend overseas in the Gulf states, and he said that at this time during Ramadan is when the hospitals are the busiest because people overdo it and indulge after the stomach has shrunk and they've been fasting. They overdo it and they slip into excess, and everybody's having all kinds of problems during Ramadan. It's completely against the purpose of fasting. It's a time of restraint, time of discipline. So Islam is a religion of health. It's a religion of excellence in every area of our lives, especially with regards to our physical health, because it's all connected. Your physical health will affect your spiritual and mental health, your emotional health. Nowadays, it is too easy to slip into excess and into indulgence. And although the Prophet ﷺ fasted and advocated fasting more than anyone in human history that I know of, only now is the research proving the tremendous benefits of fasting. And it's the most popular, one of the most popular topics when it comes to human health now. It's fasting, especially intermittent fasting. This was the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise him and grant us wisdom to truly understand his way and his path and to follow it with sincerity and with excellence. It has been clearly and definitively shown that the most effective way to improve your health is to fast. In fact, in a documentary that was just recently published called Fasting, one of the things that they stated that is that fasting for virtually any medical condition is more powerful than any pharmaceutical, that it'll have more of a beneficial effect than any pharmaceutical for almost any condition, and that's fasting. They've done now countless studies showing that the best way to improve health and vitality and longevity is to restrict caloric intake. And specifically with intermittent fasting, where you limit your eating to a very small window, right? It could be anywhere from 8 hours or less, but you want to be in a fasted state essentially for 16 hours. And with intermittent fasting, water is okay. Simply not eating for a long period of time, for at least 12, 14, ideally at least 16 hours, that puts the body into a different state where all kinds of new processes become activated to begin using body stored fat, which is also got toxins in there, to start using that for fuel, to start burning fat, and also at a little bit further, maybe 16 to 18 hours. At that point, a process called autophagy begins, in which this body begins to break down cells that are not functioning normally. It begins to use cells and cleanse itself from the inside for energy. It's an amazing thing, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. And only now all of this research is coming out in terms of the tremendous health benefits of fasting. So again, going back to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, the most evil thing that a man can fill, the most evil container that a human being can fill is their belly. The way of the Prophet ﷺ was, in Islam, in Arabic, it's known as the way of zuhud. Zuhud is a difficult word to translate. Sometimes we will translate that as asceticism or spiritual asceticism. But I think a more accurate word is discipline. Right? It's the way of discipline. The way of the Prophet ﷺ is the way of discipline, of restraint, not succumbing to indulgence and excess. And we are negligent in our religion if we are indulging in this world with our mouths, with our eyes, with our ears, with anything. This is a way of restraint. It's the path of excellence. It's a path of discipline and restraint. It's a path of zuhud. And the human body is actually not made to consume so much. It destroys the body from the inside. The digestive system must be in a fasted state the majority of the time in order to be healthy and to be functioning effectively. Digestive problems are one of the biggest problems, and I'm speaking from experience because these are things that I've had to come, and I'm actually been focusing on a lot lately, because digestive problems are a huge epidemic in the society now, much of it from overeating and also from the stress, right? Your digestive system is directly connected to this, your emotional state, your nervous system, and the stress of life immediately compromises and affects digestion. The best thing that we can do as human beings in general, but especially as Muslims, is to restrain ourselves, to begin fasting and start to pull away, regain power from this world, regain strength. The Prophet ﷺ said that the strong believer is better than the weak. And weakness comes from indulgence. Strength comes from restraint and discipline. We as believers must regain strength over ourselves. How can we serve Allah if we're servants to the nafs, servants to our bellies, servants to this world? It doesn't work. Right? Our iman is actually not going to be developing properly like that. Faith will not be developing properly. One must be able to stand upright and strong, serving none other than Allah. That includes not serving the self, nor our appetites or our indulgences. We cannot be slaves and servants to the lower self and be servants to God at the same time. That's why the way of the believers, the way of the mutasawwifin, the Sufis throughout history has been a way of discipline and restraint. So the best thing that we can do, not just for your physical health, but also for your spirituality, is restraint. It's discipline. We're so used to eating that we don't even know what hunger feels like anymore, generally speaking. Constantly snacking and eating, we've got to regain power over ourselves. And so I would say, begin learning how to go hungry. Starve yourself. You will only become stronger with fasting and with restriction. Right? You will only become stronger and more empowered. Your emotions will heal. Your heart will heal. Your body will heal. Your spirit and soul will heal. Go hungry. Starve yourself. Limit your eating and find a protocol that works for you. Start, somewhere, right? Start doing a little bit of research. And this is something that I'll be actually speaking a lot more about because it is part of the path. It is part of our path. It's part of our religion. It is part of our spirituality because Islam is not something, it's not a religion that you just believe and then you do whatever you want. Islam is a way of life. And we can't ignore a bulk of it and just take some parts of it. It's not just praying and fasting. Islam is not just on the prayer carpet. It's not just going to the mosque. It's also what you eat. It's also what you do. It's how you think. It's how you feel. It's your entire life must fit within the umbrella and the way of life known as Al-Islam. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on that beautiful, blessed, noble, straight path that is meant to lead us to health, to happiness, to strength, to success in this life and in the next. So, if any little bit of advice and reminder to yourselves and to me, and this is something I talk a lot about and we go over and we will be covering in the Eternal Warrior Way program, regaining strength over the self to allow consciousness to evolve and to awaken. So long as we are consumed, again, with consumption, one's consciousness becomes pulled downward towards this world. That's how gravity affects us. We increase in emotional, spiritual density, and the soul cannot be free. It's being held to the earth, it's being held to the ground through its indulgence and its appetite through its lower self. To actually awaken spiritually, one must find strength and power over the self to allow consciousness to shift from the lower self to the higher self, from the belly to the heart. And of course, one must never overdo anything. The Prophet's way, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the middle way, a balanced way, right? You must have balance. Inshallah ta'ala, we will definitely be touching on these topics more and more in the future. May hopefully this be a little reminder or perhaps even a wake-up call, right? To start taking this aspect of our lives very seriously. Be well and be blessed. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll connect soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.